Now, our next speaker, I think one of the pleasures of working within academia is to see our students come in and then be emerging researchers and then be leaders, and you're following them. Mo books in for 20-minute segments to see me. He says, I already know what I'm doing. I just want your advice about one thing. And those that you know me, you know I like to go longer than a 20-minute soundbite, but he's the only person in the world that can keep me to that. So he's pretty impressive. So he is emerging Māori researcher from Waikato. He has a background in anthropology and Indigenous studies, and I think that perspective helps him to look at experiences of Māori health inequity in a really different way than some of our other team who all come from a clinical background. He also is based, like Maida, at the Department of the Māori Indigenous Health Innovation here at the University of Otago Christchurch, and he is dedicated to advancing health equity for Māori communities. So, for my te pakipaki kia mau.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Te mea tuatahi me wehe ki te atua. Whakahonere te kiingi Māori. Urawa, ki mukupuna me te whare kahui are ki nui tonu I pai marire ki a rātou. Ki te mana whenua, ngai tua huriri, tēnā koutou. Ki te marino, ka mihi au ki a koe mō tō mihi whakatau I te ata nei, tō karakia hoki. Ki aku kaimahi e tūnei runga te atamira, otira ki a tātou katoa, ngā whānau whānui no ngā hauewha. Ko wai e tūnei, ko Waikato tainui, Ngāti Pikiao me Ngāti Kahungunu ki te Wairoa. As I said, ko MauTeRangimarie tōku ingoa, I am a master's student, and I like to say that, I've been saying that a lot in the last few months because I like to bring the expectations down for the audience. And I'm at the other end of my career, so this is very much a master's presentation. And I stand in the absence of Tania Huria today. So I apologize to any of her fans who may be present. For those who know Tania, she has a massive ball of energy, and I'm not the same. I'm very much the opposite. But I am actually really happy to be here today. I'm happy to stand and speak and advocate for our tangata whaiora in the eating disorder space, which I've been in for the last maybe 4 or 5 years. And so the title of today's presentation is Reimagining Eating Disorder Spaces, Embracing Māori Perspectives through a glossary of te reo terms. And we launched our kupu Māori for eating disorders last week at the Australia-New Zealand Eating Disorders Conference. To get here, I have to take you on this journey, okay? And is it this one? Ka pai. Thank you. So health, illness, and the body are understood through the cultural lens of a society, where language plays a crucial role in shaping perceptions and experiences of disorders. The values, belief systems, and language used within a society, including media representations, significantly influence how health and illness are perceived and articulated, particularly in the context of eating disorders. This whakatauki, ko tōku reo toku ohoho, ko tōku reo toku māpihi mauria, my language is my awakening, my language is the window to my soul, resonates today as we embark on reimagining eating disorder spaces and places through a Māori lens. This whakatauki offers profound insights into our worldview. In the context of today's coalition government and our focus on eating disorders, this whakatauki holds particular significance. It prompts us to explore how te reo can guide us towards a more inclusive approach to healthcare. So until recently, eating disorders were mostly seen as problems affecting Western societies. They were often linked to Western ideas of beauty. Where being thin was seen as ideal for women, The idea was reinforced through terms like swag or skinny white affluent girl. There was a popular earlier discourse. And for men, the focus was often having muscular or toned bodies with low body fat. Because of this focus, a lot of the research on eating disorders has centered on European or white experiences, even in settler societies such as Aotearoa. This old way of thinking has had a big impact on how eating disorders are understood and treated, often leaving out the experiences of Indigenous and ethnic minority groups. However, in the last 20 years, there's been a slow shift in the narrative that affirmed the position we hold, which is that eating disorders do not discriminate. They can affect anyone, any gender, any ethnicity, from low-income households to the wealthy. And we now have the data that speaks to the experiences of Māori. So tangata ko muramura, or Māori experiences of eating disorders, was a two-phase mixed method study comprised of both quantitative and qualitative components. So in phase one, which was the quantitative component, we used national administrative data to describe the characteristics of people with eating disorders and their use of specialist mental health services. And that cohort was from 2009 to 2016. In phase two, the qualitative component, we explored the lived experiences of tangata whaiora and their whānau. And we asked them a number of questions. We wanted to know the enablers and barriers to accessing diagnoses and treatment. We wanted to explore their self-perceived causal factors for the development of their eating disorders. And we wanted to know about their experiences of treatment and what helped with recovery. So to our knowledge, the Tangata ko Muramura study was the first to describe the characteristics of those receiving eating disorder treatment in Aotearoa at a national level. I get really nervous. So in phase one, for the quantitative component, what did we learn? We identified a discrepancy between the number of Māori accessing secondary eating disorder services when compared to national population estimates. So this suggests that many Māori are not receiving the healthcare they expected. Over half of the Māori within this cohort did not receive any treatment. Māori in the sample had higher rates of bulimia and EDNOS, or eating disorder not otherwise specified, and lower rates of anorexia when compared to non-Māori. The data revealed that Māori individuals predominantly reside in more deprived areas, contrasting with non-Māori who were more likely to live in less deprived areas. Compounding these challenges, Māori had higher rates of psychiatric comorbidity and self-harm hospitalisation. And then one of the, I guess, alarming stats is that almost 50% of this cohort were aged between 10 and 19. In phase two, our qualitative component, we had 15 tangata whaiora and whānau that were included in the study. 13 whaiora had a diagnosis of either binge eating disorder, bulimia, or anorexia. And we had 2 whānau members who were supporting whaiora with anorexia. Our cohort lived in both rural and urban areas, aged from 16 to 65, and had accessed both primary and secondary services in both public and private healthcare settings. And the average age of illness onset for this cohort was 14. So our analysis of the qualitative data revealed 2 critical themes. This is where anthropology comes in, and I might lose some of you at this point. So the 2 themes are eating disorders, a place of exclusion for Māori, and eating disorders, a hard to reach space for Māori. So place was defined as the language informing the ascribed meaning given to space. So I want you to think about this as the ascribed meaning was created through social interactions, through memories, feelings, emotions, imaginings, and the use of the physical location. So ascribed meaning also included the societal views embedded within place. 2 themes derived from this, 2 sub-themes derived from this theme. They include stereotypes, discrimination and bias, barriers to an inclusive place, And the second sub-theme was stigma and shame, a place of secrecy. Looking at space, on the other hand, was defined as the language informing the physical production or the material culture within healthcare settings. So in this theme, participants critique service settings, i.e. the number of beds, locations of specialist eating disorder services, service integration, and the tools used to assess for eating disorders. And the two sub-themes derived from here are access to space, a matter of privilege, and access to space, a matter of time. So in theme number 1, a place of exclusion for Māori, tangata whaiora in whānau described encountering stereotypes and bias when seeking help for their eating disorders. Some felt that societal misconceptions about who is affected by eating disorders created barriers to timely care. So quotes from participants illustrate these challenges. TK03 shared, "I've never heard of a Māori anorexic before. There's food everywhere, but that's in every culture." TK08 expressed concerns about judgment. "I had this feeling like I'd be judged more because I'm Māori. And Māori we like to eat lots and we shouldn't have any issues around food." Stigma surrounding eating disorders made it difficult for participants to discuss their struggles openly, leading to feelings of shame and keeping their disordered eating habits hidden. These narratives encouraged a sense of exclusion and secrecy, where stigma and shame hindered open discussions about eating disorder behaviour. Quote from TK07 encapsulates the sentiment. "I just think a lot of people were scared of, because when you say anorexia, you have these images in your head of someone so frail and you don't want to hurt them. There's like a scare around it, and especially being Māori." Collectively, the kōrero shared by participants underscore the significant barriers of stigma and cultural stereotypes that Māori individuals face when seeking support for their eating disorder. In theme number 2, eating disorders are a hard space to reach. Tangata whaiora and whānau highlighted significant challenges in accessing specialist eating disorder services, emphasising the critical role of clinical expertise in the assessment and treatment delays. So some GPs relied on their intuition rather than the whaiora or whānau input, which led to delayed care, as noted by TK10 here, who says, "I remember quite plainly one GP saying to me, 'Look, don't worry, there's nothing going on. I usually get a feeling up the back of my neck when it's something like an eating disorder, and it's not that.'" Tangata whaiora and whānau expressed frustration over the limited number of beds in specialist eating disorder services, contributing to wait times ranging from 1 month to 6 months. And Minister Matt Ducey was at the ANZ AED conference and committed to reducing waitlist times to 3 weeks. And that was met with cautious optimism by practitioners. So tangata whaiora and whānau cited comorbidities such as bipolar as complicating timely eating disorder treatment. Eating disorder services refused to treat eating disorders until their bipolar symptoms were addressed. So these findings underscore the urgent need for improved clinical understanding, reduced wait times, and more integrated care pathways to better support individuals with eating disorders, particularly those facing intersecting health challenges. My whānau. So one of my key objectives was to support a change in narrative around who is affected by eating disorders, why somebody may have an eating disorder, and what diversity looks like within eating disorder presentations. In 2022, and with the support of Whārauro, our rōpū Te Tira Wānanga Māwiwi Kai, or the Māori Eating Disorder Network, was formed, and we took our first step into reimagining what eating disorder spaces look like. And we started with kupu Māori. So none of us had the expertise to critique the existing kupu Māori, so we reached out to Kiri Opai. And for those that don't know Kiri Opai, he's the author of Te Reo Hapai. He's a linguist, educator, and one of a few certified Māori translators. So Kiri is known most famously for his translation of autism or takiwatanga, meaning in your own space and time. And so through a series of wānanga with Māori health providers, clinicians, researchers, people with lived or living experience, people who have cared for people with an eating disorder, we created these terms of glossary. So I'm not going to go into all the terms, but I've picked out a couple that I really like. We've picked the hardest words to pronounce too. So ngā māuiwi kai, we're going to start there. Okay, so ngā māuiwi kai refers to being out of balance or unwell in relation to food. Māuiwi means feeling tired, sick, or generally unwell. Kai translates to food. So when we talk about ngā māuiwi kai, we're describing a state where someone feels out of sorts or not quite right concerning their relationship with food. What's important here is that māuiwi isn't a permanent condition, it's something that can be overcome or recovered from. When we use ngā māuiwi kai, we're focusing on the challenges related to eating disorders, where food becomes a signal that something in a person's life is out of balance, rather than the direct cause of a problem. So I've selected pukuruaki and two concepts related to eating disorders. So pukuruaki or bulimia nervosa is when someone eats a lot of food in a short time or binge eating and then tries to get rid of it through preventing weight gain. So they might try things like exercising excessively, vomiting, fasting, or using laxatives. So puku refers to the stomach or belly where emotions are often felt. Ruaki means to vomit or to regurgitate. So puku ruaki describes the act of trying to control overwhelming emotions or expel feelings that seem too big to handle. Emotion dysregulation or karia roto ko titititi. Karia roto refers to emotions, feelings, or inner thoughts. Ko titititi describes something that moves around quickly, like the flight path of a small bird. It can also refer to the rifleman, which is the smallest bird in Aotearoa, which flies short distances very rapidly. So karia roto ko titititi means difficulty managing emotions. This is common experience in various mental health challenges, including for eating disorders. And the last one I've chosen here is perfectionism or māuiwi ko tihitihi. Perfectionism is when someone sets extremely high standards for themselves. They strive for excellence in everything they do, aiming for perfection, like reaching the summit of a mountain. While this can sometimes lead to great achievements, it often brings feelings of never being good enough. Ko tihitihi describe the top, summit, peak, or extremities of things pointed upwards, like a maunga. So māuiwi ko tihitihi is striving to reach the pinnacle of perfection in ways that is causing unbalance or unwellness. So by integrating Māori concepts like māuiwi kai into discussions of eating disorders, we honour the cultural specificity and provide a framework that resonates with Māori experiences and perspectives. This translational research not only fills gaps in existing knowledge, but also empowers Māori individuals to articulate their challenges in ways that are authentic and culturally meaningful. It aligns with the whakatauki, tōku reo tōku ohoho, my language is my awakening, affirming that language revitalization and the use of Indigenous terms are essential for fostering resilience and reclaiming cultural heritage. We use these kapu within our rōpū and offer them for use by anyone looking for language that comes from a mana-enhancing Māori worldview. We hope these kapu will help to challenge the stigma and pathologization that come with the language of disorder. And we also would like you to know that you do not need a formal diagnosis of an eating disorder to identify with any of these terms. So we share these kapu with kapu for Te Reo Māori reclamation, kia kaha Te Reo Māori. And here are the QR codes, aroha mai. One is for the Tangata Ka Murumira study, and the other was for the Te Reo glossary. Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora.